So what I came to realize is, and I'd heard these things before, but like the saying goes, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And the student was ready. So the information started appearing. And I started to look at the Federal Reserve Bank because I was always thinking it was a part of the government. Hell, it's called Federal Reserve. But then I learned that that's the con. It's like Federal Express. People are using federal, like the federal building, to confuse us to think that it's a part of something government related. It's not. The Federal Reserve Bank is a privately held for-profit banking institution, cartel. And it has member banks, right? And in 1913, and once again, don't believe nothing I say. Look it up for yourselves. So, in 1913, the Federal Reserve Act, or something similar to it, was passed to create this institution, which Congress basically gave them the sole right to create the currency for us. So the banknotes that you have in your pocket, these green pieces of paper, are created by the Federal Reserve Bank. Okay? At interest. Okay, so that's important to know. At interest. So it's not like they create the money and give it to us and then, or give it to the government and they loan it out and charge interest. No, they create it and loan it to the government, who in turn loans it to the banks, and then the banks loan it to us. So there's interest upon interest tacked on to interest on that principle. And that's where the deficit comes from. So if you could just imagine, and I don't want to get too, because I know this is not really information that a lot of people are interested in, because for whatever reason, I don't know, I am. And this is for whoever else might be interested. And most people won't be. I accept that. So it's like you come to me to borrow $5. And I say, okay, but you're going to owe me $6 when you pay it back. And you agree. I give you $5. Okay? Follow me. In order for you to pay me back, there would have to have been $6 created. There was only 5. So there's no way you can pay me back. You would have to come back and borrow more money in order to pay me the interest on what you owe me. And that's what's happening. So there's not enough money created to pay the actual principle of the national deficit. All they talking about, that $12 trillion or whatever that number is, there isn't enough money in circulation that was created to be able to pay off what we actually owe. So when they talk about the fiscal cliff and having to raise the debt ceiling, that's all fun and games because they have to. So the whole idea of, well, the government's not going to be able to pay its bills unless we vote and blah, 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 da, da, la, di, da, they're going to vote for it because they have to. If they don't, the system will collapse. The system is based on debt and debt service. And that's the new slavery. The new slavery is we're all debt slaves, me included. So, to me, those are the questions that nobody ever really talks about as a politician. Because we could take back our right to create currency, and it can be interest-free. So the government can start out interest-free, loan it to the banks, make the bank pay interest, and then, okay, if you want to filter it down and we pay interest for things, but now our money would actually be able to extinguish whatever debt is created in case of a war if we're actually attacked, as opposed to us going to other countries and attacking them for God knows what reasons. And that's a whole nother subject. Okay? But here's a story. There was a friend of mine who actually owned a bank. And when all this stuff was going down, I went to him because I was so confused. And I'm like, common sense has to prevail. So I called him up, and I'm not going to name the bank. I called him up, and I asked if I could come into his office and just hang out with him and see what he does. He said, no problem. So I go in, I talk to him about what he does, and he goes, you know, I try to create deposits and you know, increase market share for my bank and offer products and services and blah, blah, blah. I said, okay. I said, you mind if I ask you some questions? And if you feel like you can't answer, no problem. And he goes, go ahead. I said, did you receive bailout money from the government? And this was the time where TARP and all that stuff, they were handing out all these millions and billions of dollars to these different institutions. And he says, yeah. I go, how much? He said, $15 million. I was like, wow. And he explained to me how they had to restructure some things to basically put the government, they had to basically go in business with the government because the government basically made them take the money. And I said, okay, that's interesting. I said, let me ask you this. I believe that booms and busts are manufactured in our economy. I said, when you lower interest rates, as we did after 9/11, to stimulate the economy, and it pumps more money in it because more credit. That's when the real estate market kind of took off after 9/11. He said, yeah, I agree with that. I said, now, at some point, there's going to be too much money floating around. He said, yeah. I said, then won't you have to raise interest rates to stem the tide, to slow the currency down? He said, yeah. I said, now, when you do that, and you raise interest rates on people, and the currency slows down, and you're starting to take money out of the system, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be caught out there because they're not going to be able to afford the higher interest rate on the money that they borrowed. He said, yeah. I go, doesn't that create a depression, a recession? He said, yeah. I said, well, don't you know that before you lower the interest rates? He said, yes. I said, thank you for not letting me think I'm crazy. So all this stuff is manufactured. When they lower the interest rates, they're trying to stimulate spending. And then we go out and borrow. And then when they feel it's getting out of control, they raise the interest rates. We stop, then a lot of us who are caught out there can't afford the payments anymore. They take the stuff back. So they lower it to get you to buy stuff. They raise it so they can take it back. And then they sell it to you again. And then you make payments. They're collecting payments, interest, principal. They raise the interest rates. You can't afford it. They take it back. So they got your interest payments, they got some of your principal, and they got your property. And then it happens again. That's the game.